Hello everyone, happy St. Patrick's Day. So today we're going to carry on and look a little bit into static and calling methods in different ways. So in this instance, we're going to talk a little bit about the Java application programming interface. So we have a collection of classes. We spoke a little bit about this before. We have a collection of classes. They are put into a package. They're already written by someone else. We can use them. So we had a look at the scanner one previously in a previous video that I did about debugging. And when we went in, we drilled down a little bit into the code, and you can see someone else's code, which is the Java packages that are there. That's known as the Java API. So with the Java API, it is a word that's used quite often, API, when you're working. So other people make packages of classes, and when you're working, you have to talk to those different methods, maybe get a return from another method and make it talk to the other method that in your code. So that happens quite often, that APIs have to talk to each other, as a lot of people say. It's also good for software engineering principles. So it's software engineering principle is for reuse. That's really important to keep in mind. That's always important to keep in mind. So we already had spoke a little bit, and we did a program on the math class, and we used some of the static methods within that class. And when we used them, they were we didn't need to create an instance of the class. We just used them. So that's really important to know. So static, we're going to talk a little bit briefly now, and then we'll come back to it in more detail later on. So when you have static methods, most methods are when you're calling a class, you have to create a new object, and within that new object, you then can call a local version instance of that object, and then call the classes within that. So this is exactly an example of that. So we've got to create a scanner input. So we're creating a new version. We're using input. Input is used here to read in every next double, and then store it within number 1, number 2, number 3. Within this, you have, these are, if they were static, they'd be class variables. They'd be known as class variables. And in this instance, we have number 1, and obviously it's a lowercase for variable. It's together, so there's no spaces. It doesn't start with a number or an ampersand or anything. It's just number 1. It's pretty straightforward. We have double results, and then there's a calculation, and this is a method that is called within this class. So the good thing about Eclipse is that you can highlight something and it shows up where it's being used. So here we have maximum, number 1, number 2, number 3. Now we already know that number 1, number 2, number 3 are doubles. And we also know that the type doubles that are used here. So the signature of the method matches. That is really important. So if you input anything as here, then it must match. The names are up to you. This is X, Y, and Z. Obviously you can call it number 1, number 2, number 3, but just so it's not as confusing when you're calling it up here, number 1, number 2, number 3, it's X, Y, Z here. So if, for instance, you were to write out double result 2, maximum number 4, number 5, number 6, if you created another one, then that would input 4, 5, and 6 would go into X, Y, and Z. They'd be plugged in to the formula, basically, same as mathematics, and then they'd read into the method. So in this case, we have double maximum value, and X is being assigned to the maximum value. Otherwise, Y is going to be greater than maximum value, and Z is going to be greater than the maximum value. And then, along with all of the methods that we've seen so far, if it's not a void method, it has to return something, so there has to be a return statement at the end, and in this case it's a double return. So and that's where double results comes in here as well. And that's it. It's pretty straightforward so far. We've covered a little bit about this already. Keep in mind our normal things our normal acronyms that I keep repeating, which is define, assign, and use, DAU for a variable. We also have the other acronym, which is the 3 Ps for the access modifiers. So private, public, protected. We've only covered private and public so far. So in this case, we use a public static double maximum here. Public means that if I was to, for instance, say class name dot method. So if I was to create another class and then said maximum finder, and let's say it's going to be now called maximum finder with a lowercase in that class, equals new maximum finder. There's no constructor method here. It's automatically generated. We know this already within Java, so it's going to be an empty constructor. If you want to use a different one, there are multiple constructor methods that you can use. And we're going to say lowercase m for the new instance of the class, maximum finder dot maximum, and that would call this method. And then you'd pass through in that class, you'd pass through 3 different doubles, doubles being floating point numbers. And that's it so far. So if you want to send any feedback to me, the things that we've covered today are Java API, so application programming interface. There's a whole list and range of Java application programming interfaces that are available, that are packages of classes that you can reuse. We've used one already, which is the math class. We've used the scanner one as well. We'll continue to use more. We have the scanner input here. We have the system .out.print, and this is rehashing over some of the stuff. And yeah, if you have any feedback, please send it to learncomputerswithali@gmail.com, or if you have any questions about the code, and I will put this up on my GitHub for you to access. And looking forward to the next video, and happy St. Patrick's Day! Thanks for watching.